to...
One of the things I'd like to talk about today is the comments that were made in the most recent Glacier Reporter, and it was pertaining to a meeting we had on the 22nd of August, which was a Wednesday, down in Billings, Montana. And the only reason I went to Billings was to address Ed Parisian, who was area director for the BIA. I entered the meeting about a little after 10, and they were discussing oil between two lawyers, and I sat there for a few minutes, and I thought I need to get right to the point because of the issues I felt were vital to address to this gentleman. And in doing so, I guess you could say I interrupted the meeting by asking some point-blank questions. And I told him, do you know what's going on in Browning, Montana? And he kind of laughed a little bit. He said, I should know what's going on in all the reservations that I serve. I said, well, I'm talking about Browning, Montana for this specific reason. I said, because there's a number of factors that are taking place right now that is causing harm and danger to our people. I said, I gave him a list of people that had been fired most recently within the courts and throughout the tribal government. And he didn't seem to be too concerned with that because I had two documents that I wanted to hand delivered to him. I told him, do you realize that you have a councilman that was dismissed? This, like I said, was on a Wednesday, the following Sunday. Do you realize you have a councilman that was dismissed? I said, here is his documents pertaining to what his defense was going to be, but it was never offered up to him for the fact that it was already cut and dry. The other four individuals that voted him out had already put together their resolutions. They had actually 4 resolutions. One resolution was to remove him. The second resolution was to bring in a lawyer that they had already contacted in Billings to pay $150 an hour and all expenses. The third resolution was to fire Paul McEver's secretary, Mrs. Horn. And then there was another individual, I didn't catch who that was, but I stopped when they got to the firing part and I said, that's enough. I said, you guys have gone off the deep end. You have gone off the deep end. But anyway, when I approached Mr. Parisian on this, I said, here is the document that Paul was going to use for his defense. I said, and even after it was heard, I said it was just a waste of time because they already decided to get rid of him. See, there's no intention of them bringing back the council, any of the council that they have removed. Number one, they're treating the council that they're removing as if they're tribal employees. We are not tribal employees. We are elected officials of the Blackfeet Nation by the Blackfeet people. I myself have received over 1,833 votes from the people. I have children that served in the military in Afghanistan and Iraq to fight for the Constitution of the United States. And in the Constitution, it gives us the ability or the freedom to vote. I myself am a veteran in the United States Army. So we take that pledge to protect the Constitution of the United States to allow our people to vote. So what about the Blackfeet Indian Reservation? What about those votes that went out there? Are you telling me that 1,800 votes doesn't mean anything compared to the 4 council people that continue to remove people, elected officials, as if they were tribal employees? And this was the point I was trying to get across to Mr. Parisian. And in doing so, I laid down the information. I said, and I have another document, which was the document on frosty cap boss ribs. And it was about an 18-page fax that I had brought down to me from my secretary. I told him, this individual right here, and I pointed at her. She was across the table from me. I pointed at her. I said, this individual has assaulted an elder of our tribe. She has physically forced herself into that residence, and she has hurt and injured that individual. So you're telling me that you could remove a councilman just because that individual used a copier machine, allowed tribal members to use a copier machine, and now what's happening is that you could become a criminal, assaulting people, beating up people, but yet nothing happens to you? And with that, they began to scream. Willie and Shannon began to scream, and they were telling all the staff to get out of the room. Well, I told them I'm going to talk anyway. I come down here to address Mr. Parisian. I'm going to address him anyway. And I continued on with that. I told him about our Constitution, of how he has allowed the Constitution to be become ineffective because he's allowing this corrupt council to do what they want to do.